follow here, being at the end of the table, being the last one. So I'll share my story and how I became involved in the CIT work that I'm doing now and in some related work as well. In the early years of my career, I spent some time working in jails, both here in New York and in Ohio. And the majority of my work was evaluating and supporting people experiencing emotional distress and deciding whether they needed to be brought to the hospital. Other times I worked directly for the court and would be asked to provide evaluations that detailed individuals' mental health conditions, their competency to stand trial, and related issues. Now, it was during that time, this is back in the late 80s, that I first came to realize the number of individuals with mental illness who were in jail, at times on relatively minor charges, which appeared to be due to their mental illness and really didn't necessarily have anything to do with their intent on breaking the law. It was also at that time, as a mental health professional, I'm a psychologist, my background and training, that I began to become very interested in helping police understand and respond to mental illness. So in the early 90s, I had an opportunity to become involved in teaching in a police academy in upstate New York, the state-mandated 14-hour mental health portion of that curriculum, and continued to do that for many years. Then in Rochester, during the summer of 2003, there were a few adverse incidents that occurred between the police and citizens suffering from mental illness. And based on the officers' training and the overall philosophy and approach that the police department had for such calls, the department's conclusion was that the officers involved did nothing wrong and that they really did what they were trained to do. However, the department did acknowledge that what may have contributed to some of the bad outcomes was that the police were focused on the law-breaking behavior with minimal attention paid to the context in which that was occurring, mainly acute episodes of mental illness. So, like many cities across the nation, it wasn't until bad events occurred that the police department developed a crisis intervention team. However, I do want to mention that part of the success of Rochester putting together a team relatively quickly, and our first training class was in March of '04, was that they had already been researching and discussing developing a team prior to the turbulent summer of '03. I helped develop and taught portions of that curriculum, but it wasn't until after the training of that first class that I began to understand the importance of what occurs after and outside the training. Now, obviously training is important, but as the folks in Memphis are known to say, it's more than just training. It's a partnership across the community. Law enforcement collaborating with the treatment provider system, consumers and family members via NAMI or other support or advocacy groups, and in our case, county government. I also work for the County Office of Mental Health in Monroe County. Most of, or really all of my CIT work was really done with that hat on. Now, one thing that I found to be particularly important in our work, or my work, is the ongoing training days. We've had some challenges over the last year in having those, but prior to that, there were regularly scheduled training days, much like any other specialized police team. Training days consist of additional training topics, guest presenters at times, and most importantly, a chance to discuss specific calls that officers have been on. As their mental health consultant and liaison with the mental health system, I attend and offer feedback. I'm also able to intervene with providers and address those system issues as they arise. Now, the outcomes of the first year of operation were similar to the ones in the literature. And I want to agree with Detective Claxton, who mentioned the issue about training, at least traditional police training, where the EDP, emotionally disturbed persons calls, are the most dangerous calls. And there is some research literature that does show that both those calls, citizens and police, have a higher rate of injuries. However, the good news is, with CIT training, literature also shows, as it did with the Rochester group that I worked with, that CIT results in a decreased use of force and subsequently decreased injuries for both citizens and officers. lower arrest rates, and increased referrals for treatment. And then again, those are, for the literature that's out there, those are pretty consistent. We looked at whether training decreased stigma, particularly as it pertained to perceptions of dangerousness. After training, officers scored lower on a scale that assessed the beliefs that those with mental illness were dangerous or a risk to others. So the training helped decrease stigma. We also used a measure of self-efficacy or self-confidence, is another way to say that. And prior to the training and afterwards, the results showed that confidence increased with training. That is, following training, officers felt more confident that they could detect signs of mental illness and know what to do about it. Now, we shouldn't be all that surprised that people feel more confident after training, given their newly acquired knowledge and skills. Combining a sense of increased confidence with decreased stigma results in officers who are better able to observe and listen to each person's story in each individual situation without relying on preconceived notions or stereotypes. Rochester's put on 3 training classes and allowed other local police departments to attend. While the officers of the other jurisdictions appreciated the training, without the team structure in place after the training, it had less impact. That is, the other departments did not have an opportunity to review and improve their interactions, an opportunity for any ongoing training or any dialogue with someone from the mental health system like myself, and they didn't know who to call when things weren't going right. And for various reasons, those smaller departments felt they were unable to form a freestanding CIT. So we formed what we call a multi-jurisdiction crisis intervention task force. We tried to come up with a better, snappier name, that's the best we could come, because that really describes what it is. It's a meeting every other month with representatives from all of our 11 police agencies in our county. And we address areas of common concern around the interface of law enforcement with those who appear to be suffering from mental illness. We have brief training on focused topics, and most importantly, say it again, most importantly, we have time to discuss the problematic situations. Problematic interactions with citizens, challenging interactions, but also many times the challenging interactions that law enforcement have with the mental health system. I don't think I have to tell this assembled crew that the mental health system is not the most user-friendly system, whether it's for law enforcement, for family members, for consumers. There are challenges, and I want to know about them when they occur. So, between the police and the mental health provider community, but it has increased collaboration among the different police agencies with the shared goal of promoting specialized training and better responses to those exhibiting signs of emotional distress. So, it's been about 20 years since my first work in jails, and I no longer do much of that work, and instead have chosen to focus my work on keeping people out of jails. And I'm real pleased to be here among all of you who have that same goal.